Hey there, what's happening YouTube? Thanks for tuning back into the channel today, right here with the Rustbelt Mechanic. Today, we're gonna be going over my Raptor lined Duramax. That's right, my Raptor lined Silverado 2500. This is a 2006 Cat Eye that I Raptor lined over 2 years ago, almost 2.5 years. Today we're gonna go through what I did to do for the prep, the actual application of it, and give you guys a full 2-year review on how this thing is held up, what I do for cleaning, and all kinds of other things to do with this Raptor lined coating. So the first thing that we're gonna go through was the actual prep and application process. Now I'll give you guys the details from what I can remember, but if you want to, make sure you go up to this video right here. It'll show you the exact process in which we went through. I had a paint shop, which was real close to the dealership I work at, help me with all the application and all the prep work as well. Now first, for the prep work, I can't stress enough how much is important to do prep work, which we'll find out later on exactly why that is. Prep work is definitely a must. You have to scuff up the materials. You have to be able to apply an adhesion promoter to some of the hard to get and hard to scuff areas, places that are in nooks, crannies, and crevices. Very important on that one to be able to get that done correctly for that Raptor liner to be able to adhere to the materials correctly. Now after that, you have to go through a lot of prep and practice for the Raptor liner on the kind of material that you're going to be shooting it on. I definitely recommend for you guys not to shoot your vehicle immediately after mixing everything. You need to get at least 1 bottle or half a bottle of the Raptor liner to be able to practice on. Get yourself a hood, something that's cheap, an old fender that's all bent up and nasty, something that's easy to be able to practice on before you start actually applying the Raptor liner to your nice vehicle. Now when it comes to the application process, there are quite a few different variables in which it will make it look a lot different texture, and we'll go through that as well. The texture differences is going to matter on whether you guys add some kind of thinner to it, in which in this one we actually added about 1.5 ounces to 2 ounces of urethane thinner to each bottle before we applied it to the truck. Now that's going to matter, as well as the pressure at which you shoot the Raptor liner at. We use the Raptor liner guns that actually came with the kit when we put it on this truck in that video, so you don't have to worry about the hardware as much. It does come with a pretty good set of tools. Now all of the Raptor liner was shot in 2 parts. We did put 2 coats on the entire vehicle. This section right here, which is the majority of the vehicle, was shot at right around 75 to 80 psi, which is quite a bit higher than what Raptor liner tells you to shoot it at, like 50 to 55 psi. So we shot it at a little higher psi. We also stepped back a little bit from the vehicle. Normally they tell you 2 to 2.5 feet to shoot this at. We shot this one at around 3 feet or 3.5 feet back from the vehicle, so to give it a little bit of a lighter, more crisp texture while it was being applied. It also give it a thinner kind of little bit to it. I don't know if this badge can give you guys a more defined description of how the texture is exactly kind of spaced in between and how that is. Now there was some different parts of the truck that I wanted to have some different textures. So let's look up here at the mirror where it was applied a little bit differently. Now here on the mirrors, we sprayed this one on in 2 thicker coats at a little bit lower pressure. We shot this one at about 40 to 45 psi and from about 2.5 feet away. It was put on just a little bit thicker on each coat, and I really wanted it to be able to have that because these mirrors are hit so much more often due to the fact that I have these really wide tires that are throwing up all kinds of debris and dirt all over off the road. So with this one, you guys can see that this has been applied on there for this amount of time, and it does not have any kind of chipping away, doesn't have anything that's coming off of it. This thing gets hit with dirt and debris, stones all of the time. You guys can hear it going down the road, and it is held up quite well. But this is the kind of texture differences that you're going to need to look at when you go to apply your Raptor liner. Now the body and the fenders and the bumpers are not the only things that can be Raptor lined. The other thing that we Raptor lined on this project was my suspension and some of the skid plates underneath of the vehicle here. Now this one obviously is going to get the most traffic and the most hit spots when you go to use this one actually on the road. And I take this one off-road quite often. I do a lot of towing, a lot of on-highway and off-highway driving, so this thing gets abused. So let's zoom in and look at how well this one has fared. Now you can see on the skid plates underneath here, I have the BDS suspension, the 7-inch lift kit, and it does come with these really thick, hard steel plates underneath of the vehicle. Before these things were put on, I actually had these things coated at the same paint shop, so we had this stuff done in the same manner that we did the mirrors for. A little bit of the thicker process, you can see that it still does have some texture, so we shot this one a little bit farther back, but still at the lower pressure that we did for those mirrors. And you can even tell even these suspension components, even though they are down here in the most hit areas across the vehicle, you can still see that they have held up absolutely great. There are no chips out of the material. There is nothing flaking or anything coming off. Again, this is one of the areas where it is really important to get it prepped correctly for this reason. This stuff does not come off when it has a good area to be able to adhere to, and if you do the application process correctly, this stuff is next to impossible to chip. It is a really great, really absorbent surface that's able to deflect just about anything you throw at it. Now let's get into some of those spots that maybe haven't fared so well over the last 2.5 years. Now, do you guys remember me telling you guys how important the preparation process was key to having this Raptor liner stick? Well, here is why that is most important. You can see right along my bed rails, right along in here, you can see where it's a little bit rough and textured. That's where the Raptor liner is set. And then you can see right here where it's nice and shiny, where the Raptor liner has actually chipped away. Well, once I feel along this line, I can feel how absolutely smooth and shiny this still is, because this section right here was not scuffed up nearly good enough for this Raptor liner to be able to adhere to. Now in these areas, I did go over being able to adhere in hard to reach areas when I did the video on my bumpers, which we'll just put a link up right here to that one. It is so important to get some of these tiny creased in areas as well prepped as you possibly can, both with Scotch-Brite, giving it a surface to adhere to, as well as using U-Pull's adhesion promoter number 4 in these hard to get to creases to be able to have this Raptor liner stick and not have things get in there to be able to bubble up after and later on down the road. You can see afterwards I actually use this bed too, so once this stuff starts getting hit onto and it didn't have something to adhere to really well, this is where the chipping started happening. Now it did not get up above anywhere along the top side of my bed rails or anything. Where the adhesion has actually come through and done really well, it sticks to. You guys can tell exactly where it was not prepped correctly. That is where it will not adhere to, and that's where it will stop. So that is another kind of a good thing about this stuff, that if you get one little area that it doesn't adhere to and then you get the rest of it that does, it's not going to be like one of those things where you get the wrong prep process underneath a paint job and the whole thing just chips right away. No, this stuff sticks really well to the parts that are prepared correctly. To all those things that aren't, there it goes, chipping away. One of the other questions that I receive a lot was, what about the door jambs? I know that I ended up doing the color matched exactly to the same paint spec that the truck was matched to, so I didn't have to go in and do all the door jambs because that was going to be a lot more in work and labor, plus all my door jambs were pretty much already pristine and perfect already. I'm not having to cover up any kind of rust or corrosion in here or down in my rockers. So we went with just taping it off about 1/4 to 1/2 inch inside the seam line right here. Now a lot of guys are asking, well, along that tape line, is that where you guys are having a lot of issues or anything along those areas? And you can see here that we really have had minimal chipping, and that's pretty much again where the prep process goes. When you come in here and you put your tape line down first, then you go along here with a lot of your prep and all of that to where you're scuffing into that area. And then you're going to put down your adhesion promoter, and then you're going to shoot over that tape line. So you are not going to be getting into any of this area. So the taped off line that we had here is actually held up really well, only having very, very minimal chipping, you guys can see. And my 9-year-old son gets in and out of this door quite often. This is the passenger rear, so it does get its abuse in and out and through, and this stuff is not coming off in these areas. So pretty happy about those edge lines. The one final area that you guys can see that we did have one area of chipping on, this is the passenger side. This is the back portion of the cab. This is the cab. This is the bed. So in along this crease, you can see there is about a 1-inch strip right here within this crease that is still kind of shiny. So that area did not get prepped very well. Again, I can't stress enough how important the prep is, because later on down the road, 2 years down the road, this is going to be the kind of stuff that pops up and snarls its nasty head at you and starts chipping away at some of those places where it didn't get to stick to very well, even if you are really careful with this Raptor liner. Some of the other comments that I get quite often is, how much do you actually use this truck, and how well do you actually keep it clean? Do you use it for work? Do you use it actually on the road? I tell you what, I drive this truck literally all year round, and here in the Rust Belt in Ohio, that is quite a bit of abuse. I literally drive this throughout the entire winter. I do not put it up for storage, not one bit, and I use this thing as a work truck. I mean, how many other guys would put their magnets on their hood and just kind of scratch them around? Not too many people would, and you can see that, hey, guess what? We got some dirt there from the bottom of my magnet, but you know what? No chips or anything to be able to be seen. So this stuff does really hold up quite well. I'd have to say that this is one of the best textured, bed liners that is on the market today. Now, how does that compare to some of the other big ones in the market? When I went to get this thing applied, I actually looked at the other big name brands in the market, the Bullet Liner and the Line X, to be able to have this thing done. Now, the big area where that's going to be hitting you is your wallet. Now, the Line X, when I had the quote done for this thing, it was quoted at well over $5,000. Now, that is a totally different process. It's a totally different chemical application and all the way around totally different product. Now, the Raptor liner is more of a two-part process to where you apply the hardener to the solution, in which after a week or so after this is applied, it's actually going to harden and get very hard. Now, the Line X and the Bullet Liner, even weeks to months down the line, is still going to have a slightly rubberish texture feel to it, which is really great in my opinion for some other vehicles or inside of beds that you're going to need a little bit more traction on. But as far as toughness and durability, this stuff to me seems like it is way harder. It's also a lot cheaper because you can do it yourself. A lot of the reason that the Line X is going to come in at such a much higher cost is going to be because of the application process. It is actually put on at a couple hundred degrees with specialty equipment, pumps, different guns, full kinds of spray booths that they have to have for it. So that's why the cost is so high, because they have to have such a lot of specialty equipment for the application of putting it onto the truck. And if you guys missed the video on me applying the Raptor liner to my bumpers and the grille in one of my recent videos, then you missed out on that one. Raptor liner isn't just coming in the bottles and the big kits that you can see on Amazon. It also comes in a 2K aerosol sprayable format. So it's going to come in an aerosol bottle in which you pierce the bottom of the can, mixes what's inside of it, and you're able to spray it just in an aerosol form. I also did a video where I applied Raptor liner in the bottle form to the floor of my trailer using just a roller, so it can be applied in so many different ways. That's why I love how versatile the product really is and how well it holds up to me abusing it even in this truck. Now, the other two silly questions that I get about this all the time is, what about the extra weight added to your vehicle, or what about the fuel efficiency that you get after adding this product? Let's be honest here, guys. When you actually weigh the product, when you get it in the mail, you're getting about 28 to 30 pounds of product. A lot of that is also going to be dried off in water weight. We're not adding a whole lot of anything to this. In the application process, we're going to be putting this into aerosol form, and it's not all going to be hitting the surface, so some is gone here or there in that aerosol time frame. Now, obviously, with that 30 pounds then, dwindle it down about 25% or so, maybe even less. So we're looking at adding right around 22 pounds to the vehicle. And when we're talking about an 8,500 pound truck, that is not adding much of anything to this vehicle. As far as aerodynamics, obviously texture, no. It didn't add any kind of issues to the fuel mileage of the vehicle. A lot of people even said, think about the dimples in a golf ball. When the aerodynamics moves over that, it actually creates low pressure pockets and a small airstream that goes over the vehicle. Now, of course, I don't have an any kind of Airstream or platforms to be able to test this in any way. Now I can pretty much tell you that my fuel mileage before and after adding this product didn't change any at all. Not like I really care now that I have a compound turbo, almost 750 horsepower engine, which is going to use a lot of fuel anyways. Now the last area that I wanted to get into was keeping this clean. Well, that's one of the most asked questions, obviously, from all of my other Raptor line videos was how do you keep this clean and can I pressure wash it? First one, pressure washing, yes, you definitely can. Now you're going to want to be careful, obviously. You're not going to be wanting to use a 4,000, 5,000 PSI pressure washer to get in on this thing because anything that high, you're going to be denting your metal anyway. So why would you use something that big? You're going to be tearing away the plastic. So don't be stupid and use some crazy high pressure washer. Now a normal like electric powered pressure washer, yeah, no problem. I've used it. I still use it quite often and it definitely helps and works. Now for some of those hard to clean spots, I actually do use a couple of chemicals. I either use simple green or purple power mixed in a 50-50 format. Usually we get a big old bird turd on the hood and that thing bakes in that summer heat for about a week. It is going to leave a little bit of a stain. But after using that kind of stuff, use a mixture of 50-50, purple power or simple green, use a standard cloth, not using any kind of magic erase markers or anything silly like that that's gonna, be pretty much like a piece of sandpaper. No, just using a regular, good old shop cloth with some of that simple green, mix it in, scrub it in really good, rinse it off. 99% of the time it all comes out within a minute or so of scrubbing. Sometimes those really hard ones, if you let them bake in for a really long time, you might have to work a little bit harder, but it does come out just fine and it does not mess up the finish. Now the actual Raptor lining product does have quite a few really neat abilities to it. It does keep water beaded off as long as you do keep this thing well degreased and cleaned over time. I did put up an Instagram post a couple of weeks ago with this video after my buddies over at ZJ Detailing got a hold of it and degreased this thing really well. You guys can see in this video that with spraying this thing with water, it all beads off correctly and he did not add any kind of waxes or mixtures or any kind of ceramic coating to the side whatsoever. You can see how well the water beads off the truck absolutely perfectly. He said he did use some ceramic coating on that glass, so you can see how well that the water beads off of the glass and stuff, but as far as the actual Raptor liner, no ceramic coating was used at all in that area. He did degrease it very well, so any of the previous products that I had on the vehicle was totally wiped away. The Raptor liner in its normal form works great. Now what about fading or any kind of sunspotting or anything like that to this material? Now throughout this video you guys have noticed that I've moved the camera in, around, and all over the vehicle to try to give you guys as many spots as I could, viewed from as many angles as I could as well, so you guys can notice that this thing has not had any kind of fading, spotting, or loss of any kind of its texture or kind of overall sheen that it has. And it does have a nice little sheen to go along with that texture, just to keep a lot of the normal debris and elements off and out of the actual paint mixture. Now when you mix this stuff all together, you are actually using certain paint and paint products. And all these paint products, as well as the Raptor liner, has UV properties that keeps the UV light from fading the paint or what's underneath of it. Now I can definitely attest that this vehicle does not have any kind of fading or sunspotting or anything like that after the nearly 2.5 years that I have had it on there. Now some people might say different in their videos that have different colors, but in this color I don't notice any kind of difference in the coloration between what is here on the vehicle and what would still be in the door jambs and areas where the normal paint is still at. Now last and final question that I wanted to answer in this segment was it worth it? And I would absolutely have to say, yes, it was. 100%. I would do this again over and over and over again. And that's why I added the bumpers with the Raptor liner. I did my floor, my trailer in the Raptor liner, and I'm still probably going to use it on many other projects in the future because of its ease of use, ease of cleaning, how easily it applies, and the overall affordability of being able to use this product as a DIY person. You don't have to pay somebody that has a huge building, a specialized booth, or specialized equipment to be able to apply this kind of stuff, you guys can do it yourself in your garage or in your home, and they make it that easy for you for a reason. It's a great product, and it's easily obtainable to be able to get a great look to your vehicle without spending a massive amount of money. I will definitely tell you that when I take this thing to car and truck shows, I will get all kinds of views on this one, even more than those cars where guys are spending $4,000, $6,000, $10,000 on a paint job. They stick their fancy little signs up in the hood that says, please don't touch, guys. Me, I actually have a sign that says, please touch, go ahead. And I'll take my ring and my ring finger. Who will actually do that in front of somebody at a car show? You can't tell me how many people wouldn't cringe at just the thought of doing that. But you know what? You're able to do that one, and I do it over and over again to this truck, and it never disappoints me. It never fails. And 2.5 years later, this thing has held up absolutely awesome, and that's why I would definitely give it a thumbs up, and I would do it over and over again with this project, as well as many other ones that are probably going to come down the line in this channel. Now, when we're talking about the actual cost of doing this project, I ended up spending right at $325 to do this entire project. That was just in the materials. You go onto Amazon, and again, I will leave the links below down in the description of what I use. I ended up using 3 kits, 4 bottles each, 12 bottles to complete this entire project. That is enough for 2 thin coats on the entire truck all over. So the 3 kits, they're about $300, $310 a piece. Obviously, inflation, deflation, and certain times might be a little more, might be a little less, but that's about what it cost. Then you've got a little bit in the cost of the PPG tint that I did have from the paint shop, so that added into it. Now at the cost of $325 compared to the cost of over $5,000 to have this thing Line-X'd, I would take this thing many times over, and heck, you could paint this thing many times over for that cost that it was. Now, a lot of people are also asking, okay, if I can't exactly do it myself, or I don't have the space to do it, how much is somebody going to charge me to do it? Like I said, this thing is just like a normal paint job, unfortunately, so you're going to have all the prep process work that you would have for a normal paint job, except you won't have all of the after process. You won't have all the buffing, wet sanding, retrimming, or doing any kind of the fading if you would need to into other spots. This is just apply, wait for it to harden, and be done with it. That's it. So a couple of the local shops that I actually work with, they had a couple of quotes there in the way of labor, and normally they're going to charge right around $1,500 to $2,000 in labor for a big truck like this. They have to sand down, remove all of the trim, tape everything off. Now, in a sense of about 40 to 50 hours in labor, I'd say that's pretty darn good for that process. I might be overshooting in that time, but from what the quotes that I got, I would say that's what you're probably going to be looking at in the ballpark. I would say right around the $2,500-ish range to be able to apply the Raptor liner on the DIY and having somebody else prep and shoot it for you. Well, boys and girls, that's about all the information that I have for you today on this one. Again, I've left some links within the video, and I'll leave the links down below to my other Raptor line videos so you can see the process in which I went through, as well as my 1-year update, and now this is the 2-year update on it. I will definitely keep on doing updates year by year so you guys can get an idea of how well this stuff lasts from year to year, and you guys can see with the correct preparation process, this stuff does work, and it does last, and it does hold up for even some of the hardest aspects that guys put these things through. Put it through the Ohio winters fully every single day, daily driving it, and it's held up great. You guys can see it right there. Well, thanks for tuning in today, guys. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on that bell notification so you get notified when I come out with cool, awesome content just like this one here today. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, you guys stay awesome.